Welcome to the Michiana Business Podcast, where we put local legends and businesses in the spotlight for everyone in our area to see. If you love small businesses and success stories, then you're in the right place. You're listening to the Michiana Business Podcast with your friends, hosts, and owners of industrial office cleaning right here in Michiana, Caitlin and Alonzo Perdomo.
How is the strategy you probably start implementing to you people that work for you, or for the people that has many workers, they have a lot of works in the field? How do you start a strategy to start pushing for them so they can engage them with the team, like changing their mindset? How will you start something like that, or recommend something?
Well, as I said just a few minutes ago, it starts with you. If you're the leader, then the best place to start with influencing your team is by changing your mindset first. So when you practice shifting and changing your mind and your mindset, and you become a more positive person, you're solution oriented, you don't let the monkey mind control you, you're more likely to lead by example. That's the first thing, lead by example. Show your people, share with them your own mindset shifts. So when you catch yourself, maybe in a meeting or around in some interaction, and you catch yourself with a monkey mind, chatter going on in your head, and maybe you even react and you say something that was like, oh gosh, I probably shouldn't have said that, or no, I didn't mean that, or however it comes out, then share with them, you know what? I take that back. I'm going to look at this differently. I'm going to change my story, and just share with them what you're doing for yourself. I'm going to change my story. I'm going to look at this more positively. I'm going to look at it as a solution instead of a problem. And as you lead by showing them what you're doing, that's actually the best way to influence other people. Because when we try to tell people what to do, when we unsolicited try to tell people how to change their mindset, it doesn't work. So the best thing to do is start with you, and then just invite them into your world, so to speak, your world of mindset shifting. But live out loud. Show them that you're doing this. Because if it's all internal and they don't know and they're not seeing these changes, then it's hard for you to try to tell them to do it.
Yeah. It's hard to how do they say this? It's hard to lead the horse to the water when it's not thirsty. When the horse is thirsty, it goes straight to the water. So let me ask you this: How do you think it will impact the business if you start applying this mindset in the field, whatever field that they do in construction, distribution, manufacturing, anything? How do you think it would rapidly change? For example, right now, a lot of people having trouble with high turnover. Do you think that will help them to people stick longer with the business, or what is your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And to go back to my example earlier with the client that I was talking to that was having a problem with employees, with not being able to hire and having turnover and having that. So, she another one of her stories was, everybody's on unemployment, and when the government is paying them so much, why would they come and work for me? Well, that wasn't a useful story.
Yep.
Let's just say, even if that were partially true, or maybe mostly true, it's still not an empowered story when you need to hire good people.
Yep.
So right off the bat, as soon as you you turn that around, you stop the monkey mind chatter of those stories that are disempowering and they go nowhere. There's no solutions for that. You can't help it. If the government's paying a whole bunch of unemployment, you can't do anything about that. So in that case, you're a victim. Like, you see what I'm saying? So you got nothing.
Yep.
So the minute you turn it around and you say, you know what, it doesn't matter what the government's doing. It doesn't matter if in the past this is the way employees have shown up or not or whatever. I'm in charge. I'm in control. I know I can be resourceful. I know there's a solution. I absolutely, and this is where commitment really comes in, not just the story, but the commitment. We get into this weird cycle where we kind of give up, and that's
Mhm.
why we love our excuses and the old story, because it sort of gives us permission to stay stuck.
Yep.
But the
Yep.
minute you say, nope, I'm not doing that anymore, I am 100% all in committed to hiring good people right now, no matter what.
Yep.
And then you support that by saying, I'm creative. I'm a creative person. I'm solution oriented. I know there's an answer. If anyone out there is hiring right now, they're doing it. I can do it.
Yep.
Then automatically your mind, your brain is open to possibilities where it wasn't before.
Well said. See, guys up there, if you guys are struggling with this, or you guys think you're the only one, you are not the only one. There's a lot of people up there that struggle with the same thing. They run a huge companies, they have a lot of employers, and they have to deal with the same headaches. Even if you're a small company or a big company, it doesn't matter. You have the same issues. So, with that said, Tracey, what do you recommend to people to start set up goals for the company, or how they set up goals to build the mindset? Even if you are have like 2 or 3 employers, or you have 100 employers, how is a good strategy to set up goals?
Well, the first thing I would say, if you're just wanting to make one really powerful change, and it's so simple, it's super simple, okay, everybody? So just incorporate into your culture, like start with you, and then have this be your sort of your moniker, your motto, put it on the wall, okay? And this is a writer downer. Here it is. How can I? Instead of, you don't understand, I can't, I've tried everything, right? So whatever it is you're trying to do, the first question you want to ask yourself, you want to ask your team, you want them to ask themselves, their team, and so forth. So this is a culture thing, is we are a culture in this business of how can we? Even when you think you don't know the answer, how could we? How can we? And if you just keep asking that one question and repeatedly, answers will come. So it doesn't matter what goal you set out. If it seems unattainable at first, and you're arguing sort of internally for your limitations of why it can't happen or how hard it's going to be, you're already starting sort of underwater. Okay, so start with that $1 million question. How can we? How could we? Even if I don't know how, but if I did, how could I? And that will take you miles, miles and miles ahead of where you are now.
Yeah, because you start with how. It's still like I cannot do it. I try it. It's a whole different mindset. So it's always how. Never say I can. I try already. So very good. So do you think this? I'm gonna go a little bit deeper. By helping people that is working in your business, all this mindset, seeing and work, did this help internally to the people that work in there and kind of take it back home and kind of apply it at home as well? Or what is your thoughts on that?
So what applies in business applies in our personal life.
Okay.
I mean, these principles of mindset is really about you being in charge, you not being a victim. And it translates all the way into the way that we relate to our family, our children, our spouse, right? So if we take responsibility for how we feel and our own mental processes, right? What we're thinking, what we believe, the stories that we tell ourselves, that's everything. So believe me, everything I'm talking about in business is absolutely still, it's probably doubly true in your personal life. So think about how many times you've interacted with someone in your family or at home in your personal life, and that person just kind of set you off. They just trigger you, right? There's always at least one of those people in our friends or family that
Yep.
just seems to push your buttons, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And if you can't avoid that person, and that's just someone that, they're your family or whatnot, think about how often we project that it's that person's fault. It's, well, they make me crazy. Well, if they just didn't do this or they didn't say that, I wouldn't think this or I wouldn't feel this way. That's a really disempowered place to come from when you're relating to other people that you can't control. Like, the reality is you can't control what other people do. As much as we would love to try to control them, we can't. So the only thing you can control is your thoughts and therefore your feelings, how you feel. Because our thoughts and our feelings are connected. We may not like that, but that's the truth. So everything I'm talking about here, taking control back, taking responsibility for your own thoughts and judgments and beliefs and stories will help you take back that emotional connection too. So super important.
It's very powerful stuff here, guys. Listen, because it's a lot of once in upon a time that I get Tracey in my podcast. So, Tracey, let me ask you this because I know some people think that this is not really important, but I think to me it is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Let's say, for example, you are getting involved in business, you're stressing out with the business, then you come home and your partner has a bad day or is struggling with the kids or whatever, and then kind of the minds, both having a bad day, they cross with each other. How much affects your relationship plus the, how do I say that, the affected work in the business? Can you break us down a little bit that?
So are you asking about the, how relationships and dynamics at home affect business?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, of course it does. But here's what's interesting is we think of business as not being emotional.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, oh, well, I'm a business owner and now I'm going to put on my logical, intellectual hat and I just think about strategies and P&L sheets and write numbers. And we think all of a sudden we go to work and we're not an emotional person, that emotions don't have anything to, well, clearly that's not true. It's just, that's what we tell ourselves. So we get through the day and whatever, but that's kind of a white lie that we tell ourselves. Emotions, we're emotional people, even when we don't think we're being emotional. So bottom line is, no matter where you go, whether you're at home or you're at work, your state, that's your emotions. It's your emotions connected to your body. So have you ever noticed that when you're upset, you've gotten in an argument or something, your body actually doesn't feel good. You feel tense, you feel sick to your stomach, whatever the case may be. So our state is something that if we don't learn how to manage that, if we don't learn how to manage our state, our emotions, our emotional intelligence, then it absolutely affects our work in ways that we probably don't even notice consciously. We think that fight we had with our spouse the day before or the night before has nothing to do with how we're showing up and the way we're thinking and acting at work. But we are holistic people, and what happens at home and vice versa, both affects both. So this is why mindset and emotional intelligence are not compartmentalized. They're not exclusive just in one situation or scenario or another. So it's really important for us to, as people, know that this is a personal growth topic that we're talking about that affects your money, your business, your team, your family, your health, every aspect of your life is touched and impacted by your either ability or inability to manage your mindset and your state.
Awesome. So what type of exercise you think you'd be like, okay, if you have a bad day in work, or if you have a bad day before you go to work, what exercise, how can you trick your mind, switch it, and don't be in the same mood? Because as soon as you get up in the morning, you have that argument with the spouse, or as soon as you come home from work and you have a really bad day in work, how can you break that down? Like, okay, this stays in work, this stays in my house. How can you combine that?
That's a very good question. Wonderful question. And it's so important that we are able to manage that. So the first thing I would say is we need to have rituals. So most of our life is way more habitual. In other words, we create habits that we don't even realize that we have habits about. And so one of the maybe poor habits or not so good habits that we have is carrying our personal life into work or work life into personal life, right? So we don't have good rituals or practices that help us clean that up to not take what happens at work home or vice versa. So my recommendation is start a new habit, start a new practice, a new ritual. So it may be something as simple as when I leave work, if I've had a cruddy day at work, okay, I had trouble with my employees and a client quit, or, there's all kinds of stress, that I make it a conscious point, a decision that I'm going to take time. Like, for instance, it could be something as simple as go outside and walk around the block, take deep breaths, move your body, change the story, tell yourself a very positive story. I recommend everybody have sort of, I would call them pocket stories, right? These stories they can pull out of their pockets, so to speak. And sometimes you just write them down. They're positive stories that uplift you and make you feel good. So for instance, before you go home, you have a really powerful, positive, uplifting story about your wife or your kids, and it may sound like something like, I am so grateful. Gratitude is a key. This is a really wonderful way to get out of a bad mood or a bad state, is to go right into gratitude. I am so grateful for my beautiful children who are amazing. And then you tell the story about specifically what's so amazing about them and what you're grateful for. And you do that while you're moving your body, going outside, getting air, whatever it is. And it's almost impossible to keep that same state, the same bad mood you were in before, because you've broken the pattern. You've broken that old habit with a new practice. So gratitude, a story of gratitude, especially if you're shifting from work to home or home to work, you want to have a gratitude story in your pocket, a pocket story about that you can practice and then move your body.
Awesome, guys. So don't go home, guys, with that funky attitude. I call funky attitude. Just change your mindset. And if you have a bad day going to work, just think about the other things that you've been with your wife, your kids, all the great moments, so you can change your mentality. So when you arrive in work, you're like, wow, I have a really good team. I have a great wife, great kids. Or even if you just have your spouse, you have a really great spouse. I'm assuming you will find a really good time that you guys share and back in the day, so you can change that mentality. So Tracey, just to wrap it up, because I know you have a limited time, what do you recommend people to start doing to change their habits?
So habits are just something that we've done repeatedly enough to where it's a habit now, right? So really, we think of habits as being hard to make or break, but really all it is repetition. So what I like to recommend when you want to develop a new habit, so we'll talk about new habits here. So if you want to develop a new habit, and let's say I just gave you one example of gratitude. So let's say you want to practice a new habit of every time that you leave work before you go home, you practice gratitude. You practice your gratitude story. So instead of doing something that feels really unnatural, my recommendation is I call it bolt on habits. So if you have a ritual that you do at the end of your workday, let's say, I know most of us are kind of working sort of at home, which is an interesting dynamic, but let's say you have an office in your home or you have a physical office away from home, you make a commitment to yourself. The new habit is before I shut my computer off or, close my computer, I'm going to take that 2-3 minutes right after that, before I push away from the desk, before I walk through the door. I get up and I write in my journal or whatever works best for you, or I just say 3 things I'm grateful for before I leave that room or I leave the building or I get in my car. Do you see what I'm saying? So use it as something that there's already a quote ritual around leaving work and going home. So just bolt on that's one simple little habit and do it every single time, every day that you leave work. Every time you stop working and encounter your family, right? So it's simple. So bolt-on habits are the easiest ones to develop quickly.
How long do you think it takes to build a good habit? Oh,
it really just repetition. So it's not a matter of time, it's a matter of repetition. So if you can do something 5 times a day, it doesn't matter what it is. I'm just saying in general, you 5 times a day for 5 days is going to develop a habit much faster than if you did it 1 time a week for 5 months. So compress time and increase repetition, and you have a habit much faster.
okay. So for all people up there that they like, how can I start changing? What exercise that I can apply? So it's basically you just think why you got to make those changes and why do you want to of those results, right? Is that or how will you put it?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. You have to have a why. Your why has to be stronger than the old pattern, the old habit, the old thinking, the old whatever, right? If you want to change something, you better have a really compelling why. And the why needs to be both away from and toward. So what I mean by that is you need to have a desirable desire goal, like this is why I want it, and here's all the benefits and the good things I'm going to get from it. But you also want to have a why that is the opposite. And I don't want this anymore. I want to get away from or not be that, have that, feel that. So a toward why and an away from why. And the stronger that is for you, the more you feel it, the more emotional it is for you, the more likely you are going to be to take the committed actions, develop a new habit, do whatever it is you want, that you're saying you want, the more likely you are to actually do it. So have a very, very strong why.
Strong why. Why did you want to change? Why do you want this new future? What was behind it, was holding you, and what it gets you where you are right now? If you still don't, how do I put it this way? If you are not where you want to be, what is keep holding you, right?
Exactly.
So,
And actually, I think that's the absolute perfect place to conclude, because what's bigger, better than your why?
Yep, that's totally true. So Tracey, any 3 books or a book that you recommend for people to start changing their minds besides the one that you already tell us?
Oh gosh. God, there's so many classics. The ones that come to mind first is Think and Grow Rich. That's Napoleon Hill. That's a very oldie but good one. And Millionaire Mind, The Millionaire Mind, especially since all of your listeners are business people, business owners.
Mhm.
I would suggest those two books. Absolutely. They're fundamentals.
Awesome. So any other feedback that you want to share with us, like any more encouragement, anything that you can like, oh, I can add this to make more magical this story for the people they want to listen to?
Yeah, just as to wrap up, and the final word of the day is the more you take charge, the more you take responsibility for yourself, your thoughts, your feelings, your state, right? The happier you're going to be, the more agency you're going to feel, and the more progress faster that you're going to make. It starts with you and it ends with you. And today, right now, is the only time that there is to change. The past is past, the future hasn't happened yet. So right now is the point where you get to decide who you're going to be and how you're going to feel and what you're going to do. So
yeah, because I just want to add up this real quick since you said that. Isn't it weird how every time we say like, oh, it's because I didn't do this, because I don't have that, it's because all the time we have to find excuses to point the finger somewhere else instead of look at ourselves and say, I got to work hard on myself instead of trying to blame other people. And when you start working and you so far, you start like realizing like, oh shoot, it was me. It was not them. It was nobody else's fault. It was just me. So with that said, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Don't forget to sign up in Michiana Business Podcast if you want to join the podcast and share your great story to the public in the area. So with that said, see you in the next podcast.
If you're in the Michiana area and would like to have us put your business or story out there for everyone to hear, sign up at MichianaBusinessPodcast.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.